Recording. So,
great.
Welcome everybody, and this is the second of our two sessions that we're focusing on Murshid Samuel Lewis, the originator of the Dances of Universal Peace. So, celebrating his Urs, the anniversary of his passing, which was on Saturday, 51 years ago. So some of you might have seen our first session from Sunday. It's up there on YouTube, so if you didn't see it and you want to after doing this, go right ahead. And we've got a theme for you today, which is around
strength and power. Yeah.
So Murshid Sam would refer to himself as Fudo, as the defender of the faith. And this is a quality that he really learned during his life, learned to express, and I think it can be helpful to us to remember that people are not necessarily born with strength. It can be something that we can learn and practice.
And in our visits to the United States and also the visits of teachers from there to here, I've noticed some of those qualities coming through, and often students who were close to Murshid Sam are able to transmit those qualities. And we might say a little bit more of that later on.
Very good. So, well, let's begin, as Murshid Sam would begin, with the Sufi invocation of Hazrat Inayat Khan. Inayat Khan was Murshid Sam's first Sufi teacher, and he continued to be guided by him throughout his life, long after Inayat Khan had passed in 1927. Towards the One, the perfection of love, harmony and beauty, the only being, united with all the illuminated souls who form the embodiment of the Master, the Spirit of Guidance. Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. We begin in the name of Allah, who is all mercy, all compassion.
Great. Samira is showing us a picture of Samuel Lewis there.
So we're going to begin with Yahai, Ya Haqq, O life, O truth. And when we say Yahai, we're going to fling our arms up, making this chalice to receive life force, and then bringing that life force down through our bodies, Ya Haqq, to earth, grounding it in earth, grounding our own truth, the truth of our own being. So Yahai, Ya Haqq. So we're going to be walking with that. Let's just, I think we'll just begin, and I'll call it out as we go. So if you've got space, get up and walk around your room. If not, just really fling your arms up and feel the life force. Feel yourself embodying truth and life. Yahai, Ya Haqq. Yahai, Ya Haqq. Yahai, Ya Haqq. Yahai, Ya Haqq. Turning on the spot. Yahai, Ya Haqq. Yahai, Ya Haqq. Yahai, Ya Haqq. Yahai, Ya Haqq. Hands to the screen. Yahai, Ya Haqq. Yahai, Ya Haqq. Yahai, Ya Haqq. Yahai, Ya Haqq. Now imagine we're taking hands. Yahai, Ya Haqq. Yahai, Ya Haqq. Yahai, Ya Haqq. Yahai, Ya Haqq. Walking again. Yahai. Yahai Ya Haqq. Yahai Ya Haqq. Taking hands in our virtual circle. Yahai Ya Haqq. Yahai Ya Haqq. Yahai Ya Haqq. Yahai Ya Haqq. Now double time. Yahai Ya Haqq. Yahai Ya Haqq. Yahai Ya Haqq. Yahai Ya Haqq. Turning. Yahai Ya Haqq. 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 Taking hands. Yahai Ya Haqq. 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 Double time. Yahai Ya Haqq. 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 Yahai. Ya Haqq. And so notice your breathing, notice the rise and fall of your chest, notice life force and how it's showing up through you right now, the truth of your being, your experience in this moment. Yahai Ya Haqq. Ameen.
Ameen.
You want to do something next?
Yeah. I think I just wanted to talk about my own experience briefly.
Just keep looking
What?
at the camera
looking
because
at
you're
the
off
camera.
the screen.
Right. Okay. I've often found it easier to attune to certain spiritual qualities, such more gentle ones such as compassion, when dealing with my own development in terms of holding parts of myself with loving compassion, and harder to feel a sense of strength and power. And when I've experienced those in teachers, sometimes I found that a bit intimidating. And yet somehow some part of me knows that I need to learn about embodying those more. And I wanted to read a passage of written by Sammy Lewis as when he met Inayat Khan, one of his meetings.
And there is a picture, isn't there? Would you show the picture first, perhaps, and see this is...
Yeah, it's there. There we go.
So I just felt this was a picture that's not seen very often of Samuel Lewis as a young man, and it kind of shows, I don't know if you can see there, his this deeply sensitive, vulnerable, unconfident person. Certainly, maybe I'm projecting, but I can see those qualities.
But he describes himself as having quite a nervous disposition.
So this is the young man who went to see Inayat Khan.
He was very involved already with the the Sufis in America who had taken Inayat Khan as their teacher. And he went to meet him for the second time. He says, "Before we sat down, Inayat Khan said to me, 'Samuel, I am going to ask you a favour. I want to speak to you as man to man. I am not Murshid, you are not Murid. We are just men. If we cannot act as men, it will not help me. Can you act to me as man to man? If so, let us shake hands and then we can sit down and talk as man to man.' We did so and sat down. 'How many loyal Murids do you think I have?' he asked. 'Oh, I guess about 100. 'I wish I had 100. But how many do you think, at the least, loyal Murids I have?' 'Well,' I said, 'I don't believe it, but just to give an answer, I would say 20. 'I wish I had 20. I wish I had 10. Then he arose in full majesty and yelled at me out loud, 'I wish I had 10. Then he lifted his right hand and, using the index finger of his left hand, pointed to the middle of it and yelled, 'I wish I had 5 loyal Murids, Samuel. Can you believe it? I have not as many loyal Murids as I have fingers on one hand.' By that time, the chair in which I had been sitting toppled over like in a Hollywood movie, and I was sitting on the floor totally amazed. But by this action and by his loud speech, I received the full magnetism of his barakah or blessing, and I believe I still have it." So for me, that gives an indication of the power and strength that could be transmitted by Inayat Khan and by Samuel Lewis as part of their spiritual attunement. And I believe he sometimes said, "I am the proof of Inayat Khan." This was shared with me by my own teacher, who sometimes manifests that power and strength. And I think part of the reason for... Are we going to read something else?
What were you going to do next?
I was just going to say part of the reason for sharing this today was because at the moment I'm personally struggling with facing an very powerful inner critic. But today I was able to face it, but drawing on some of that power, and I felt I actually began to get somewhere. Okay. And that was using Allahu Akbar, which was given to be my teacher. Allahu Akbar.
Allahu Akbar.
Peace is power. God is great. And we did actually use that phrase on Sunday as part of a dance. So I was going to lead that dance again, really focusing on the sense of strength and power in the steps, because there's a real rhythm that comes with the stepping in the dance. And then it finishes with Allahu Akbar. So we'll do that a few times, and then we'll just go into some recitations of Allahu Akbar. So, Subhanallah.
Subhanallah. Shall I write these in the chat?
Yeah. Subhanallah, the purity of the one. So these were 3 phrases given by Muhammad to his daughter as a gift. Subhanallah.
Subhanallah.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
So all praise and thanks return to the one. And then Allahu Akbar.
Allahu Akbar.
And what key was it? Let's see.
Do you want me to play?
Yeah, please. Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar. So let's get the feet moving. Even though we're not walking in any direction, just get those feet into a nice rhythm. cupping our hands underneath the Hare, the power center in the body. Then Alhamdulillah, throwing our hands up to the heavens. Allahu Akbar, hands on the imaginary shoulders of our partners in the circle. Now just reciting Allahu Akbar. Let's do it 33 times. Allahu Akbar. 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 Breathing in, Allahu Akbar. Breathing out, Allahu Akbar. And then letting the words fall away, just breathing that sense of peace and power and strength. Ameen.
I really invite you as we go through this session to keep checking in with yourself and your body and your energy field, allow yourself to notice what effect these practices and dances and even the readings might have, because there is so much power in these teachings, and if we're willing and open to it, then extraordinary things can happen. So I wanted to read a little bit. This is a story that's often been told, and maybe it can speak for itself. So in 1970, Moinuddin, the man who Murshid had appointed as his spiritual successor, so he became the spiritual leader of the Sufi Ruhaniyat after Murshid Sam's passing. And Moinuddin had chronic long-term kidney problems. So in 1970 he became ill and went to the hospital. The doctors frankly considered him on the point of death with very little hope of recovery. All this time, Murshid refused to go and see him in the hospital. This is being told, this story, by Wali Ali, who was one of Murshid Sam's closest disciples. So he said he would talk to me about it. I've got work to do. But still, Moinuddin got worse and worse. And Murshid was getting ready to leave for New York City on a trip. So he agreed to go to the hospital because he didn't want him to die while he was gone. And he said, I'm going to give him hell. He later reported it to me, so when Murshid Sam got back from the hospital, he told Wali Ali about it. I didn't give him a breath. I told him he might think he was going to slip off into heaven, but he was sadly mistaken. He was going straight to hell until he could come back and fulfill his purpose. If he wanted to lie on his back all the time, he could get a job as a mattress tester. And then I left. Murshid told me to go in and give him another positive treatment while he was gone, which I did by cheerfully and emphatically telling him all the activities that were going on and then leaving immediately. After Murshid's visit, Moinuddin immediately began to get better, and he returned from the hospital shortly before Murshid's own death. So Murshid, I mentioned that he often described himself as Fudo, the protector of the Dharma, and he would describe the Fudo as the wise guide who does not confuse sentimentality with love. And the other part of this story that I have heard from, I think it was from Pir Shabda, but certainly from one of the other Murids who was around at that time, was that when Murshid Sam got back from the hospital from shouting at Moinuddin, he wept bitterly. It really took a toll on him, but he knew that he needed to give him that force of his personality in order to get him well out of the hospital, so that he was in position to take over when Murshid Sam himself passed. So these things are not always as they appear. So just wanted to read another little bit again from Wali Ali, who was the esoteric secretary. And he said, whenever I spoke up, Murshid Sam would listen. He listened for the ring of truth. He listened as if it was God himself speaking. It could be a most disconcerting experience. I came to understand that blanket of his energy field was like a test for those around him to be able to master a certain amount of positivity in order to break through. Thus one found after his passing that his disciples had been transformed into very positive beings, capable of taking the initiative in the same fashion as their Murshid. And he talks about this blanket of his energy field. In many ways, his disciples often found him quite embarrassing. He would not dress very conventionally. He would not behave conventionally. and it required a certain positivity and strength to kind of stick with that and be around to receive the many blessings and the enormous love that was flowing through him. The ones who were able to do that, it's amazing that it's still so alive with them, the force and the power of that. Some of you might have been present on Saturday. There was a Zoom call with about 300 people internationally to celebrate the Urs, and I believe it's been recorded on YouTube, and so if you're interested, I think you can still see it if you missed it. But interviews with a number of those original disciples who are still around, and what's really palpable is how they are still moved to tears very often at talking about him, because of the deep love that they feel that they received from him and that they felt for him and they still feel for him. The enormous power of his presence still very much with them 51 years later. It's very moving.
And he was different with all of them in the way that they needed him to be. So some of them had this very strong experience of the power with him. Others, it was more gentle, loving, depending on what they needed for their own growth.
That's right. Yeah. So maybe we'll do the Mars and Venus breaths and walks now. So taking this theme of strength but also beauty. Again, some of you know that there are these beautiful walking practices which Murshid SAM did with his disciples, and which are still being passed on and shared. So one collection is the planetary walks. His disciples were very interested in astrology, so he used these as a powerful teaching tool, and they would walk their charts, and he would prescribe different walks for different people. So on Sunday we did the sun and the moon. So again, if you want to have a look at that, have a look at the other recording. So Mars and Venus. We'll do Mars first. So Mars is breathing out through the right nostril and in through both. So you can just practice that by closing your left nostril as you breathe out, and then opening both to breathe in. Sometimes it feels to me a bit like a bull snorting before it charges. I don't know why. Does it ever give you that impression? So Mars.
I can see that.
Can you see that?
I think so.
Yes. So the Mars walk. It's if you need to get things done, it's a great walk. It's a walk that just, kind of keeps going and marching, and you can keep going for a long time. It's a sort of mixture of fire and earth. So I think rather than talk about it, let's demonstrate it. And what we suggest, as usual, is that you watch for a little while and then do stand up and try it out for yourself, feeling those qualities. So again, just the reminder, this breathing out through both nostrils, then in through both. So it's not unlike marching soldiers. There's a sense of being part of a team or a company. This marching that can just go on and on. Head down, feeling this breath of fire and earth.
Very solid.
That's right, feet very grounded. Concerning energy, strong and powerful. And then we can turn to the right, just again feeling this. So the gaze is a little bit downwards. I just involved in getting the job done. So I should have said before that if you're not able to get up and walk, at least try and do the breaths that we're showing you. So the Venus breath is in through the left nostril and out through both. And of course Venus, the goddess of love, beauty, attraction, attractiveness. You can feel that in-breath through the left nostril, drawing in whatever you desire, drawing it irresistibly to you because you have this irresistible quality as Venus, this beauty, this confidence in yourself. In through the left nostril, out through both. Can be quite flirtatious. And then the turn to the left, again, this sense of drawing in just what we want, what we need, this sense that also it's inexorably coming to us because we deserve it. And even if you don't think that, you can practice it with this walk. So just before we go into the next dance, one way to bring these qualities into balance, we've been saying how each one of us has Mars qualities and Venus qualities in us, and usually one or the other is more apparent, more easily accessible. So what we can do is practice the Mars and the Venus breath together. So if we breathe out through the right nostril and in through the left nostril, we can feel those qualities coming into balance. So let's just explore that before we move on. So out through the right, in the left. And maybe we could just do this walk, this kind of perfected walk of the balance of Mars and Venus. How would that be? Be both strong and focused, and also gentle, sensual, beautiful, attractive. Notice those qualities spiraling together in your being. So a practice that you can, of course, take out into the street if you want to, practicing your walking out and about, and see if you can notice which quality is more present for you at a certain moment in time. Hare Krishna, Hare Rama. Would you like to lead it? Okay.
Can't remember anything about it. Play if you want.
So, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So here we are. Here are those qualities expressed through Krishna and Rama. And if you wish, when you're dancing with Krishna, you can play the flute. You can be letting your glance move in a flirtatious way, catch people's eyes on the screen, or catch people's eyes in the room with you. And then Rama, this again, the warrior, the Mars figure, strong and upright and powerful, and with these, often the arms are raised like this to show this strength and power. And Hare Krishna will walk to the left, and Hare Rama will walk to the right. So here we go. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare And again, breathing out through the right nostril, in through the left. Hare Om, Hare Om. It's a beautiful story that one of Murshid Sam's original disciples shared on Saturday. This is Davy, who's she was, I think, one of his very youngest. She was only 14. She'd run away from home, and she was living in San Francisco. And her boyfriend had been going to Murshid Sam's classes. And finally one day, I think they picked him up in the car, and so she was in the back. And it was the first time she'd met him. And this was a real example of how, you know, she was somebody, she said, he was only ever gentle to her, only ever loving and compassionate and kind. And so this, from this first moment, he got into the front seat of the car and he turned round to see her in the back, and he got his Krishna flute out and he began doing that was her first meeting of him. So that set the scene that she was always going to receive just that gentle Venus Krishna energy from him. Oh gosh. No, hang on. What do you say? It's not. Hang on. What time have we still got? 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So right. So I'm not going to do the last thing then yet.
We don't have to.
We don't have to do it all. No,
Don't have to do it all.
But there's lots to do. That's all. There's lots to do. So another practice that I would like to share with you, this is one that Wali Ali said that often Murshid Sam would lead them in, which was Ya Dal Jalali Wal Ikram. Ya Dal Jalali Wal Ikram.
Ya Dal Jalali Wal Ikram.
So I'll just write that in here. Whoops, if I can. There we go. So Jalal or Jalil is the quality of strength, and Ikram comes from Kareem, so it's the quality of loving generosity. And this is again about the balance of power and beauty. So the walk, as Murshid Sam would lead it, was a very powerful walk, something like this. Ya Dal Jalali Wal Ikram, 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 Ya Dal Jalali Wal Ikram. So very much a Mars quality to that. You can probably feel that. And actually Wali Ali has led that walk. He calls it the walk of Rabia of Basra. So bringing in the feminine qualities of strength, but also beauty, gentleness, compassion. So we can bring some Venus into that walk and feel it as that balance of Mars and Venus. Ya Dal Jalali Wal Ikram. 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 Ikram, Ya Dal Jalali wal Ikram. And again, taking a moment to just feel those qualities blending in you, strength and beauty, power and compassion, Fudo and love. So I'd like to share with you a practice which Murshid SAM would lead with his disciples. Murshid Wali Ali has written about it. We've been quoting partly from this book, In the Garden, which is a beautiful collection of writings by and about Samuel Lewis. If you don't know it, really recommend it. The other one that you read from was
Sufi Vision and Initiation.
So this is sort of the diaries of
selected autobiographical writings of Samuel Lewis.
So this practice is written about in the garden. I'm just going to read you a bit about it and then we'll lead into it. So just sit comfortably and relaxed. So I think you'll perhaps see the Mars connection. So after the Prophet Muhammad and his followers had been successful in securing the Arabian Peninsula from external enemies so that they could practice their religion, he said, "We have been successful in the lesser holy war, the jihad, against external enemies. Now it is time to take up the greater holy war, Mujahida, against those enemies within our own selves, against hatred and jealousy and greed and so on." And Murshid would often remark that the Kurukshetra, the battlefield upon which the Bhagavad Gita is spoken, is in truth the battlefield of the heart. It is with this kind of consciousness that the Mujahida meditation is undertaken. So this great holy war, the great struggle, if you like, with our internal selves. So one begins by simply watching the breath, gradually refining it and making it rhythmical throughout. And consciousness is focused on the heart center in the middle of the breast. You feel your breath gradually massaging and soothing this center of feeling. So allowing the breath and the rise and the fall of the chest to gently massage the heart center and soothe it. After doing this for a few moments, until it's a natural process with no mental strain, one moves to the next phase of meditation. So one then internally looks into one's heart and feels the impressions or samskaras that are lodged therein. There may be the surface impressions of the day, the mundane worries of one's existence. And one notices and releases each and all of these. They are released by the gentle massaging action of the breath on the heart. So keeping with the breath, watching the flow of the breath, the rise and fall of the chest. And as impressions arise in the heart, maybe images of the day or concerns or worries, just allowing the breath to massage the heart and release the impressions. And as the surface impressions are released, it may be that deeper impressions make themselves known. One may come face to face with a grudge against someone, or with an impression of rejection and self-pity, or with deeply ingrained emotions of fear or anger. Whatever impressions come up, just allow them to arise, face them forthrightly, shining the light of your consciousness on whatever's arising and continuing this massaging action of the heart, of the breath. If you find it helpful, you can place the name Allah on the breath. Inhaling Allah, exhaling Allah. The breath massaging and releasing each impression as it arises. Maybe you can see that in a visual way. Imagine them peeling away and being released, floating off. Or maybe it's a feeling in your heart. Or perhaps you experience it in some other way. This gentle massaging action of the breath upon the heart center, upon the impressions, soothing and releasing them. And you may come upon impressions that resist your efforts. They've lain for so long in your heart that a rusting process has set in. Be assured that by patient effort and trust in Allah, even the most persistent impression can be released. If not in one meditation, then in 101 perhaps. This process has been called polishing the Aladdin's lamp of the heart. Rise and fall of the breath, polishing the heart, soothing and releasing the impressions that have been left there. And an essential thing about this practice is that all external judgment is suspended. Just focusing on polishing the lamp of the heart. And when the faults of friends and enemies well up as realities in one's inner vision, there's a sense that an impression has been caused by somebody else's actions, one looks for and finds the resonance of this fault in one's own being the sympathetic vibration or impression on one's own heart. And then one gently and patiently massages and releases this impression inside oneself. The rise and fall of the breath, gently massaging and soothing the heart, releasing whatever impressions are arising. Remembering that the without is the same as with the within. There is no difference. When this becomes conscious, and the inner purification takes place, then the within becomes as the without. And this is the secret behind this meditation. For one finds that by working on the impression inside oneself with love and forthrightfulness, one actually helps purify the outward situation as well. The rise and fall of the breath, gently massaging the heart. Soothing and releasing whatever impressions are arising. And maybe by continued practice of this meditation, one can arrive at the state where your heart being has become transparent, free from impressions, the globe of the lamp polished, free from soot, flooded with light, and in its natural condition, which is love. So this is the mujahida, the greater struggle, the never-ending struggle for each one of us, the continual polishing of the lamp of the heart. Amen. So we're going to close with the Zikr devotional dance of Murshid SAM. This is based on the Zikr that he was taught by Hazrat Inayat Khan. So there's 3 stages, 3 phases to this. First one we say La ilaha el il Allahu.
La ilaha illallahu.
No reality except God. No separation. Only this one reality. And then we say, after some time, Il ilaha el illahu.
Il ilaha illallahu.
And then after some time we move to Hu ilaha el illahu.
Hu ilaha illallahu.
Coming ever deeper into the breath, this sacred one breath of Hu. And maybe we'll just finish with Hu, 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 Hu. Here's the melody. And the third one is high. The third one we're always going to sing La ilaha, even if we've been singing il or hu the rest of the time. So we're going to stand. You can dance if you choose, or you can stay seated or lying down. But as we move through the phases of the dance, we're going to come a little bit closer to the screen each time. If we were dancing in a circle, we begin holding hands like this. And then for the il ilaha, we come into linked elbows like this. And hu ilaha, we come into arms around like this. So we're going to just do our best to replicate that by coming closer to the screen each time. So taking hands in our virtual circle, let's just take a moment to remember that feeling of holding hands in a circle, feet on the ground, the warmth or coolness of a palm against our palms, connected around the circle through hands and hearts. And we're going to sweep from left to right across the heart. And then we're going to bow, al-il-allahu, like this. Supposed to be a turn to the right. Stepping closer. Arms around. Around, feeling, remembering that connection, warm bodies holding, and the shared breath. So let's just sit or lie silently, watching the breath, feeling the rise and fall of the chest. The breath coming in, the breath going out. The incoming breath is bliss. The outgoing breath is serenity. Serenity and bliss. Bliss and serenity. Out and in. In and out. Some closing words from Murshid SAM. One can never meditate too much. This does not mean going to one's closet, but it means keeping the heart fixed on God, keeping the mind fixed on the invocation every moment, day and night, so the very breath will keep on calling towards the one, towards the one. Then the hour will arrive sometime when the talib, the student, will realize their true being. And what is that true being? It is God, the only being. So breathing in towards the one, breathing out towards the one. Amen.
Amen.
So do join with us. May all beings be well. May all beings be happy. Peace Peace.